Hi, I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Jess, and this is Financial Progress. So today we have a special guest, Traveler Charly, who is a money coach and host of Unicorn Millionaire Podcast.
Woohoo! Welcome,
Woo-hoo! Pew, pew,
Charlie.
pew! Doing our own sound effects out here until we
Right.
scale the podcast.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Before we begin, I just want to give a little disclaimer that this is just a conversation between friends. This is not financial advice, and please seek the help of a financial professional before making any financial decisions.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Charlie, before we get into all the good stuff that you're going to give us, tell us about your financial progress over the years.
Oh, what's not to tell?
Tell
I'm
us all.
progressing. The finances are progressing. I mean, it was good meeting you at FinCon in person, by the way. I'm still riding the high after popping my first FinCon cherry and going to Atlanta for the first time.
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, and just coming back, I've reflected a lot on my financial progress and what still needs to be done. I got coached by Rachel Rogers because I'm single. Wink, wink. I have no kids, and I'm a full-time entrepreneur. Been doing this full-time for 4 years, and I realized I was spending a lot of time cooking to save money, which, like, growing up Latino, that's what you do. Arroz con frijoles otra vez, and going out to eat was like a fancy thing. Get used to it. And I realized that even though I've hit 155K net worth, I've still have been spending so much freaking time cooking all my meals from scratch. And so she was like, you need to look into a meal delivery service. And I was like, but I don't have kids. I have so much time. And you're like, you actually don't, because this is tiring you. And you could be using this time in your zone of genius to rest or being in your business. So since coming back, I've been buying pre-made meals at Trader Joe's and shopping around for meal delivery services. And that just really reminded me of the scarcity that I've had of, like, feeling terrified of losing all my money. And so I would cook a lot. And I remember in 2017, when I got my top surgery, I was laid off, got on Medicaid, and I had to recover for a whole month. I could barely move my arms, and friends would Venmo me money to buy takeout, but I still wouldn't buy takeout. I used that money to still cook and buy groceries. And that was like a big moment for me, where I feel like that's financial progress, of realizing the scarcity and being like, okay, we don't have to do everything ourselves anymore to save money. The wealth building process is emotional. Like, I'm still grieving that part of me that felt like they still couldn't rest, even though they could barely lift their arms, and recovering from top surgery and still had to cook everything from scratch to, like, take care of myself. So that's I feel like, is in resumen a good way, a snapshot of my financial progress.
Yeah, definitely. So it shows that you value your time more, and you know that cooking doesn't necessarily bring you the value that you would make doing something else. Yeah, that's amazing.
And talking about prep meals, Chrissy, I don't know if it's because where she's located, she's in Lancaster, but she has like a spot where she can pick up the meals, and it's very affordable. It's so much cheaper than like the ones that get delivered. So I don't know if that's an option for you, Charlie, like finding a local pickup place.
Okay.
Yeah.
What service do you use, Chrissy?
So it's Clean Eats, and I think they're just local, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But they have a meal plan, so I just go pick up fresh meals and then use them throughout the week. They have to be frozen by Thursday, so they're fresh until frozen, but they last up to 6 months when they're frozen.
And you think it's still worth the investment?
I think so. They're $6.52 a meal, and I find that they're healthy. And if I don't do that meal plan, I tend to just eat out, and I'm spending way more money. So it's just a set amount every week. We haven't done it in a couple months, but we want to probably go back to it eventually. But I do see that as value, not having to go to the grocery store, because that takes a lot of time to prep and do everything. So yeah, just order the meal plans that they set, and it's really helpful. It saves a ton of time. And money.
Cycles, y'all, because I did not grow up with this stuff.
Yeah,
I know. But that's the cheapest I've ever heard, though. Like
$6.52 a meal, and that's if you order. The more you order, the cheaper it gets. So that's like if you order 21 meals. So we'll do them for like lunch and then dinner sometimes. So yeah,
I've been eating the Trader Joe's tamales and everything, but making my own kale and putting that on top, because the Trader Joe's ones, they have a lot of salt. Since I'm used to cooking myself, like, I don't put that much salt on my stuff, and add my own veggies without salt. But that's good to know. I think I do want to move to a cleaner option.
I wish I
eventually.
had a Trader Joe's near me.
Right.
I don't, but I wish I did.
Okay, so we have some options there. So Charly, how did you get into the financial space? Like, was it something that you dealt with financially when you were younger, and then you're like, you know what, I need to teach this?
Not at all. Growing up, I wanted to be a social studies teacher because I loved high school AP history. I was such a history nerd. I think realizing now I'm on the spectrum. I'm autistic and I love pattern recognition and I love random facts. So I aced all those AP history exams because I just loved absorbing all the information and the dates and all of those things. And I was like, ooh, I want to teach people history and social studies.
Mhm.
But the reality is that it's really hard to get a job as a social studies teacher. So in my 20s, I ended up doing the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, all the Corps, being on
Wow.
food stamps, on and off in my 20s, just overworking, being exploited for my labor, being uncompensated. So by the time I was in my late 20s, I was burnt out and I was like, this is not sustainable. Like going back to 2017, where I got my top surgery after getting laid off, aproveché to get on Medicaid because my top surgery would have cost $15,000. But in the recovery process, I didn't have a lot of money. So I would still dog walk through Rover to make ends meet. And right now I'm still pet sitting and I use it to save money and also as an income source. But back then I remember just walking dogs, and after top surgery, you can barely lift your arms because they cut into the muscle. And I remember tying the
Wow.
leash around my waist to walk the dogs so that I wouldn't be in pain. And I was like, 65-year-old me is never going to deal with this shit. And then I decided to work as a stockbroker with Charles Schwab for a year in Indianapolis, where I just learned so much about how the stock market works. And I got my first 401k at 29, and I started listening to the Susie Orman and Paula Can't Afford Anything podcast. This was before like Janice came on the scene with Yo Quiero Dinero. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have this job and I'm going to stack my Roth 401k, open a Roth IRA to make up for all the lost time I should have been investing. Like when we were born, our parents should have opened investment accounts for us,
Right.
because of the compounding value of money. But I was undocumented, so we couldn't do that. But even if you're undocumented, you can still invest. Like the IRS has nothing to do with us. They just want you to pay your taxes. So yeah, it was just because I didn't want to suffer. I ended up working in the finance world. And then I quit my job when COVID hit because I was so excited for the stock market to crash. Even though I was only making 45K, I thought I was rolling in it. I lived in a bougie ass apartment that was like siphoning half my paycheck to this bougie apartment, but I was still living below my means and cooking all my meals and dog sitting so I could stack my 401k. And I pieced out and moved to Playa del Carmen and got my MBA and hired Catal Carmen as my business coach. And I was like, I just want to work for myself full time because I don't like the code switching at the workplace and the feeling that any moment I could lose my job and these condescending old white men that are on their power trips. Like, no, I don't want to deal with that. And entrepreneurship is hard, not going to lie. There are multiple $0 months. It's not like I don't want to glorify it, but I would still rather work for myself than somebody else at this point. And I love what I do. My clients are amazing. A lot of them are first gen, the oldest daughter who are used to being parentified and parenting their parents and teaching them everything and teaching their siblings everything. So I love working with them so that they can be selfish and take care of themselves, because that's the point of money, right? That's what we're talking about, like cooking less, outsourcing. And so, yeah, I love what I do, but it was not something I grew up being like, I want to be a money coach and twerk online and have a podcast called Unicorn Millionaire.
I love the podcast name, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I learned about ticker symbol from Charly.
Oh,
So
nice.
funny.
Amazing.
At a workshop. I guess it was an investment workshop.
Yeah,
I was
Soledad.
so clueless. Yeah. It was about like, how do you open up a Roth? And what do you need to do? What's a ticker symbol? I needed that. 'Cause I had no idea what it was. So thank you, Charly.
Of course. Love it.
All right.
So, Charly, you shared with us offline that normally people talk about their finances at the beginning of the year. Can you tell us why it's important to focus on your finances at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think right now is November. The end of the year is actually the best time to focus on finances because of things like open enrollment. For a lot of companies, open enrollment to enroll in your employee perks programs, like your health savings accounts, is from November 1st until January 15th. I have a client who works at a Fortune 500 company her period just ended too. But it's important to just know when your company is having open enrollment, so you can either enroll in your HSA or change things up within that certain time periods to set yourself up for 2025. And we have things like year-end bonuses going on at the end of the year too, which I feel like with the clients that I work with, we're not used to receiving massive cash influxes and directing them intentionally. I work with so many people who've received big influxes of like 10, 20, or hundreds of thousands of dollars in inheritance, and they just sit there rotting, losing value to inflation in a crappy Wells Fargo checking account. And once they work with me, I'm like, we're breaking up, we're dumping Wells Fargo and Bank of America, putting that into high yield savings and then investing it too. So I think right now is a really great opportunity to set yourself up for January. And I'm excited for January 1st to hit so I can max out my Roth IRA. Like clockwork, every January, I max that shit out so that I don't miss out on a whole year's worth of gains.
Yes. So talking about HSA. So my company does not have that. Do you recommend like for me to go somewhere else to get it, or is that possible?
Like to quit your job?
No, like I know that people, I guess, offer HSAs outside of work, right? I just want to heard that before.
Yeah, you have to have a high deductible health insurance plan.
Okay.
So I would look into that. As a business owner, I haven't opened my own one up. But yeah, I don't know,
So
honestly.
only at work, I guess.
Yeah.
So only if your job offers it, open it.
I actually don't know. I haven't really thought about that before. I'm just used to everybody having one at work, and I'm like, y'all, we need to be investing in this and maxing this one out. So
I wish.
You and I both, we don't have one. It's okay. But
we don't have one.
Do you have one?
I do have one, yes, through my employer, but it's through my employer, so because they offer one. But yeah, but because I do have
retire early.
Yes.
Hopefully, that's the goal, right? So, Charly, can you tell us more about the benefits of an HSA and how someone can get one? Like, what's the criteria?
Yeah, so they're triple tax beneficial. Unlike the Roth IRA, they're tax beneficial, but the HSA is the only investment account where the money that you put in isn't taxed, and you should definitely be investing it in the stock market. Most HSAs have a threshold, like maybe at your job, Chrissy, they're like, you have to have the first 2K or 5K in cash. That's fine. But then the extra money that you put in there can and should be invested in the stock market so that it can grow more than just sitting there in cash. So when you're investing, you can buy like shares of index funds. I don't want to say Apple stock because at HSA, you can buy funds usually just like in a 401k. But if it grows, you don't have to pay taxes on all that growth. And the stock market can grow 20% in a year. It can go down by 20% in a year too. So that's why we're long-term investors. And then when you take the money out to pay for qualified medical expenses, like your deductibles for health insurance, you don't have to pay taxes on that as long as it qualifies as a medical expense. And when you turn 65 years old, you can take that money out and use it to pay for anything. You just got to pay taxes. So that's what's special about HSAs. And back when I did have one, at one point, Jess, I did have one.
I'm so disappointed I don't have one.
I had one when I was a stockbroker. I remember stacking it. And then I remember quitting my job, and because it was COVID, it was like August 2020. And I'm so glad I asked my employer, hey, can I leave my job like August 1st so I could still have health insurance for the whole month of August? And that week I got a massive blood clot in my arm. My arm looked like a lobster, like 5 times bigger than the other one. And I had to be hospitalized for 3 days. And I ended up selling a bunch of my stock from my HSA to pay for the deductible, which was like, it was a couple thousand. I think it was like $5K or something. And friends would still Venmo me as well, too, to pay for these costs so that it wouldn't deplete my retirement saving, which I want to normalize, though. Like, you can still ask for help even if you're not bankrupt, too. I think that a lot of us wait until we're like bankrupt or really bad. Like, no, people can help you out too. All you have to do is ask. But I'm really glad that I understood how to max out my HSA. And also the stock market was popping, so I didn't feel that bad. If the stock market had been down, I would have probably taken more from my emergency fund, which is why it's important to have an emergency fund for when the stock market's not doing so hot. So that's how I've used my HSA.
I'm jelly. Like, I want an HSA.
Right,
but
same.
I'm about to go back to my employer and be like, this is what we need.
You could talk to them, see what they say.
But I realized that we didn't explain what HSA was, and we probably need to do the comparison of HSA and FSA, right? So I don't know if you want to get into more details.
FSAs are kind of ghetto. They're called flexible spending accounts, which the money
just like ghetto.
doesn't
ghetto.
roll over usually until the next year, unlike the HSAs. Like HSAs are health savings accounts, and they're definitely better than the FSAs. So that's why I don't really know too much about FSAs. Y'all, I'm really focused on certain accounts, and the other ones I'm like, I don't need to know about that. It's not as good.
Yeah, you can't invest with FSA. It's like, and then if you can't. So it's a certain amount of money that they choose. You can choose up to a certain amount, and if you don't use it up by the end of the year, you lose it.
Yeah. Unlike the HSAs, like that shit can grow and grow and grow in the stock market until you're like retired, and it can actually fund your retirement too. Unlike the FSAs. So yeah, that's why I don't get
want an HSA.
You
want an HSA.
Okay. So, max out your Roth IRA, you got your emergency fund.
Yeah.
I do have to say that my HSA currently, I haven't signed up for the investment portion of it yet because I had a lot of medical expenses this year. So I wanted to see what that was going to be before moving it to an investment HSA. So for someone like me who has never turned my HSA into an investment HSA, do you have any suggestions or tips?
Yeah, I would call the healthcare provider too if you're not hiring a money coach like me to walk you through. And basically, I'm a white man, fancy money word translator to walk you through what these terms mean. I would definitely call the HSA team and have them explain these investment menus to you like you're 5 years old. That is what they're getting paid to do. As somebody who worked at a call center, my job was to reset passwords half the time for 70-year-olds and to explain what Roth IRAs were. Like that was what I was getting paid to do. So don't be afraid to call and ask questions. But I would look at the low cost index funds. If you see a 500 on it, that's like a green flag. And I always look for the low cost funds with something called a low expense ratio. I like funds that have a 0.02, 0.03% expense ratio. I've seen some as high as 1%, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're investing hundreds and thousands of dollars, 1% is a lot of freaking money that you don't need to be investing in, which is something I help my clients who don't know how much they're spending in these fees, like get out of these and into the low cost index funds that get into the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US too. And the younger you are, the more money you can afford to have in these risky funds, because when the stock market crashes, they really dip, but when it goes up, they really skyrocket. But if you're like 70 years old, you can't afford to have all your money in the stock market because you'll be panicking every time it does crash. And the stock market will continue to crash. It's not something that happens randomly. If you look at a chart of the stock market, it has gone up, down, up, down, up, down, but up over the course of time. So I think that knowledge of expecting the stock market to crash is really powerful. So you can swoop in and buy stocks when they're on sale.
So I didn't know that the HSA that you can just have it in there. So it's kind of like not putting it in a fund. You know how like some people open up their Roth 401k or Roth and they just leave the money in there and not put it in something. So that's kind of like how your HSA is, Chrissy, right?
Yeah, it's just like a 401k. Like you've got to go in and tell it what to invest in.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of money that has the potential to grow is just sitting there just because folks don't know how to leverage it. So that's why I do what I do.
Love it. After our workshop, I think I end up opening up Charles Schwab Roth. So that's what I have. I didn't put like a lot in there. I was just like, here's $20 just because I still had my other stuff. So I do have Charles Schwab. I do not know the expense ratios and I need to go and check it. That's right. Thanks for the reminder.
0.02, 0.03.
Let me go check. Thanks for
Yeah,
reminding.
of course. Year end, baby. I'm here with all the reminders.
Yes.
Yes. No,
What
go
other
ahead.
reminders can you give us for year-end goals or setting up yourself for the following year?
I think to look forward to maxing out your Roth IRA, like months in advance. I'm setting myself to max it out as a relatively low income earner. All of my clients make more money than I do because as a business owner, I have to have what my business makes, business expenses. I have to budget for taxes, and then there's what I pay myself. And this year, I'm paying myself the most I've ever paid myself, which is still just like about 47K. Last year, I paid myself 30K. But I'm very good at prioritizing these retirement investment accounts and having that timeline of when you should maximize them. So January can hit and I won't necessarily pay myself 7K, which is this year's max for the Roth IRA, but I will go in and I'll sell stock from my Schwab brokerage account, boom, and transfer that into my Roth IRA. Because I think a lot of people think that you have to like wait because it does have to be earned income. They think that you have to wait for each paycheck. It's like, no, you don't have to wait 7 months to fund that account. As long as you make that 7K at some point after taxes throughout the year, which was something huge that I learned about as a stockbroker. All these middle class rich people, they weren't waiting to max out these accounts. They were selling stock from an account that's not as tax beneficial and just moving their money around to the right accounts and siphoning that money. I was like, oh, okay, this is like,
Oh, wow.
this is a big deal to prioritize these retirement accounts too. So looking forward for budgeting in terms of putting money in these accounts. And also holiday budgeting, I think is huge for people, not for me personally, because I'm estranged from family and I don't see them during holidays and I'm not like a huge gift receiver or giver too. But I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. I think that boundaries and budgeting around holidays and being clear, especially if folks are in debt, is really important. You shouldn't feel pressure to like go bankrupt or get into huge amounts of credit card debt in order to show people that you love them. So I think that just being clear also about, hey, I can't afford to like drop $5,000 at Christmas this year, and being straight up about your debt situation if you have one is really huge because there's a lot of shame around debt and there shouldn't be.
Yeah. I remember like for a long time, for years, I would always use my credit card for gifts. And then until I became debt free, it was just like the first few years was just like, oh my gosh, I actually use cash. But also more mindful and like I don't need to spend so much money on each person because my list is very long.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but yeah. So that's a good point. What is one piece of financial wisdom you would like to leave with our audience?
I think that you don't need to know all the financial jargon when it comes to investing. In fact, it's actually beneficial to you to not know all the financial jargon, which is probably a hot take, but a lot of people come to me thinking that it's going to be a masterclass in the stock market and we're going to be looking at charts and all this fancy stuff. And that was me as a stockbroker. I had to get tested to get my licenses and learn a lot of fancy words. And then I realized I was just spending too much time researching with all this jargon that I knew to like pick the right stocks and over diversify and invest in way too many things. And instead of just focusing on these S&P 500 low cost index funds, where you just need to know like the expense ratio and look at how the funds have done over the long term. That's really as simple as it can be, as long as you leverage these retirement accounts like the Roth IRA, or if you make too much to contribute to the Roth IRA, you can put in an IRA and then do the backdoor Roth IRA. But I think investing doesn't have to be so complicated as long as you know the basics, so that you can just do it the lazy way and keep investing in the same boring index funds that never go viral on Reddit or TikTok. And if you want help, work with somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Stop taking advice on Reddit and TikTok. That's 2 gems. I'm sorry, but yes for one. But I had
that just reminded me of the GameStop on Reddit. Yes.
And the people that didn't know what they were doing were getting in too late or being like, am I too late? And it's like, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So Charly, how can our audience find you?
Y'all can find me twerking on Instagram
Yes.
and hating on Wells Fargo and Bank of America and loving on high yield savings accounts at TravelerCharly, and my podcast, Unicorn Millionaires, on Spotify and Apple. And I also have an awesome email series called Roth Freak Fridays. You can sign up for that at the link in my bio on Instagram, where every Friday I remind you all of the magic of Roths, whether it's Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks, which anybody can access at the 9 to 5, regardless of income. You don't need to worry about income limits for that. So, and my blog is unicornmillionaire.com. And also for the month of November only, I'm offering one-off calls because, like I say, November is actually a great time to be on top of your finances. You can book a call to get a one-off session with me for $297. And if you book to work with me for my 6-month money coaching program, you can actually use that as a credit toward my $6,000 money coaching program. So if you need help with your cash, getting out of Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and boosting your credit score with credit cards, because a lot of y'all just need to get in on those better credit cards that give you lounge access instead of just hanging out at the terminal at the airport.
Need that.
And help with your investments. Like if you don't know what's going on with your HSA, we can take time during that one-off call to look at your HSA and pick the right investments for you so you can understand what's going on in all of these investment accounts. So I haven't done one-off calls in 3 years, since 2021, since I taught Jess about ticker symbols. So get on this while it's hot for the month of November only.
Awesome.
Nice.
That sounds like a great deal.
I want lounge access. I don't know what credit card status.
Like if you have a 720 credit score, you have no business hanging out like in the terminal.
I love that.
That's
Oh my
real.
gosh.
I need to record that right now.
It's still recording.
Oh, yay. Yeah, splice that, post that.
I love it. I love your
Awesome.
energy.
Sounds so fun.
Thank you. It is like glitter, sparkles. It's very
Yeah.
gay.
I love
I
it.
love it. I love the energy. I can't wait to
Yes.
see you twerking on Instagram.
All right, let me go right now. Thanks for having me,
Well,
y'all. I'm so
thank
happy I
you.
met you at FinCon.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. And Charly, just want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on our podcast. We really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Thank you.